And I just want to keep it going because some of these smaller weight classes are kind of fun to watch now, right? A lot of quality opponents. And so Bruno Silva and Victor Rodriguez. So, Victor Rodriguez, we kind of broke him down in more detail when he fought Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez seems to be a guy that has a tough time getting his fights, finalized and stuff. Not on his part, but it seems like it's tough for him to get an opponent. I think that Victor Rodriguez did his best. The way we broke him down was Alaskan fighter, likes to grind. It was very old school style fighter, right? It looks like this was something where out of a, early mid 2000s type of playbook, right? He was exciting in the first round, was able to really work towards the takedowns and work in some ground and pound against the guy who can just take a lot of damage. And it took him a while to get the finish, but he did get it, was able to ground and pound him. And I think that when you look at the skills of his opponent, Jared Mazurik, he reminded me of, he looked a lot like Matt Dan. The way I kind of saw that fight going was grapple a bit more, but never got top position, was taking a lot of damage on the feet. And Victor Rodriguez was able to work his way into top position and just finish it with strikes. But now you fast forward to the Adrian Yanez fight, and the way I broke it down was very much a brawler style technical. And that's why I'm so in love with the way Yanez fights, right? Because it's so technically sound. The way he feints, the way he looks for his, he picks them perfectly. And I think Victor Rodriguez was not ready for that kind of opponent. Definitely knew that was going to be a finish for him. And I think that the odds were outrageous anyways. Not like there was a ton of money for you to make if that was your cup of tea. But the thing with Bruno Silva is the guy's a beast, right? He trains out of Fight Ready. I think we're starting to see him really find his footing. The JP bias, right? I think that fight was a great example of where he was able to showcase some of his skills against the guy that is a little bit more closer to his level. He hasn't been able to see such looks in the UFC, and to take on guys like Tagir Ulanbekov and David Dvorak is a pretty significant jump. So that's where I think that Bruno Silva deserves that, second wind, if you will, that second opportunity to really kind of showcase his come up, because in the previous fights, like we said, there's just these opportunities for, very new fighters to make a name against big names. And maybe if they pull it off, they could get a huge opportunity in their careers. But, more likely than not, it's going to be a tough fight. And, I'm glad that he makes every fight exciting. That's the part about him that you cannot ignore. But, going into Victor Rodriguez, we kind of said, right, very much a grinder, very much needs to, see a lot of looks to improve his technical skill. Maybe spend a lot more time in one of the camps like ATT or Extreme Couture, where you're getting to see not only opponents that you could potentially face in terms of skill, but you get to see all of the coaching that goes into these fighters. Game plans are based on your bases. So, at the end of the day, it would be a good opportunity for him to see where he can take his game to a new level. Now, this is going to be a tough fight. I think that Silva's finally getting an opportunity to fight guys that are more on the come up like him. And, the Ulanbekovs and David Dvoraks of the world definitely are a main card, looking to get into the ranked areas. And with Silva, you saw really good striking against JP Baez, right? I don't think JP Baez, he was not able to get any type of offense going. And that's where I think that the footing, the boxing, that's where Fight Ready's starting to really create some good fighters. And I think Pitbull brothers are pretty good examples. It was a tough Bellator showing, but, moving on from that, I think that this is a situation where, like I said, Bruno Silva deserves to be a favorite. I think that he's finally putting it all together, gets an opportunity to fight guys where he can really showcase his skill and get more looks as a UFC fighter. And on the flip side, when I'm talking about guys like Victor Rodriguez, I just think that there's a lot of gap to make up for, another Alaskan fighter, Carlton Minus, right? You can definitely watch these guys fight and say, there's technical value there, but in terms of athleticism, in terms of speed, those are areas where there's significant improvement to be made. And I'm excited to see them, come into their next fights as different fighters, because that's the one thing that you can't, we always talk about how the fight camp that are the areas where they're improving that we know nothing about. So coming to this one, I hope that to see a much better and improved version that we saw against Adrian Yanez. And so with that said, let's take a look at these lines, baby. Okay, so with that said, Bruno Silva opened it at minus 300, now looking at it as a minus 370, minus 340 type of fighter. I think this is his fight to lose. Victor Rodriguez is a tough fighter, but I think a technically sound game plan can piece him up for long enough that I don't even know if he's going to be able to last 3 rounds based on the fighter that we saw heading into the Yanez fight and coming out of that. Now, if he's made the significant improvements that are needed, I think that's an area where he's going to be able to show showcase a huge upset. I think that this is also an area where if he can get this fight to the ground and maybe really work some top position and maybe do what he's used to over in Alaska, I think that's where he can maybe even get some confidence as a UFC fighter and kind of put his game plan together over the course of 3 rounds, because I think that's where he's going to be able to see just how tough it is at this level. So the lines are obviously saying one thing. Who knows what happens in camp? We're going to be able to see the weigh-ins and see how different he looks, versus his camp against Adrian Yanez. So I'm excited for that. That was a short notice fight. So keep it locked. I think these guys are going to have a great time in there. Now, talk about overs and stuff like that. I mean, the previous fights with some of the lighter weight classes, I thought they would go over, but that's a great one to consider even an under, man. I think that both guys kind of, bring that edge to them that even by the second, third rounds, energy wise, there could be a slip up enough for one of these guys to finish. But, at a minus 300, now moving to a minus 370, minus 350 line for Bruno, we can all say that this is moving in one area.